Namaskar everyone. Welcome to Inkpot 1. Today we will discuss and learn chapter 6 of Social Science of class 6th. Chapter 6 is about new questions and ideas. The story of Buddha. Siddhartha, also known as Gautam, the founder of Buddhism, was born about 2500 years ago. This was a time of rapid change in the lives of people. As you see in chapter 5, some kings in Mahajanpads were growing more powerful. New cities were developing, and life was changing in villages as well. Many thinkers were trying to understand these changes in society. They also wanted to try and find out the true meaning of life. The Buddha belonged to a small Gana known as Sakya Gana and was a Kshatriya. When he was a young man, he left the comforts of his home in search of knowledge. He wandered for several years, meeting and holding discussions with other thinkers. He finally decided to find out his own path to realization and meditated for days on end under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar, where he attained enlightenment. After that, he was known as Buddha or Wise One. He then went to Sarnath near Varanasi, where he taught for the first time. He spent the rest of his life traveling on foot, going from place to place, teaching people till he passed away in Kushinara. Buddha taught that life is full of suffering and unhappiness. This is because we have cravings and desires. He taught that craving could be removed by following moderation in everything. He taught people to be kind and to respect the lives of others, including animals. He believed that the results of our actions, whether good or bad, affect us both in this life and the next. The Buddha taught in the language of ordinary people, Prakrit, so that everyone could understand this message. He also encouraged people to think for themselves rather than to simply accept what he said. Around the time that the Buddha was preaching and a little earlier, other thinkers also tried to find answers to difficult questions. Some of them wanted to know about life after death, others wanted to know sacrifices should be performed. Many of these thinkers felt that there was something permanent in the universe that was lost even after death. They described this as the Atma or individual soul and the Brahman or universal soul. They believed that ultimately both Atma and Brahman were one. Many of their ideas were recorded in Upanishads. These were part of later Vedic texts. Upanishads literally means approaching and sitting near, and the texts contain conversations between teachers and students. Often ideas were presented through simple dialogues. Most Upanishadic thinkers were men, especially Brahmins and Rajas. Occasionally, there is mention of women thinkers such as Gargi, who was famous for her learning and participated in debates held in royal courts. Poor people rarely took part in these discussions. One famous exception was Satyakama Jabala, who was named after his mother, the slave woman Jabali. Now we will discuss about Jainism. The last and 24th Tirthankars of Jainas, Vardhaman Mahavir, also spread his message around this time, that is 2500 years ago. He was a Kshatriya prince of the Lichvis, a group that was part of the Vaji Sangh. At the age of 30, he left home and went to live in a forest. For 12 years, he led a hard and lonely life, at the end of which he attained enlightenment. He taught a simple doctrine. Men and women who wished to know the truth must leave their homes. They must follow very strictly the rules of Ahimsa, which means not hurting or killing living beings. Ordinary people could understand the teaching of Mahavira and his followers because they used Prakrit. There were several forms of Prakrit used in different parts of country and named after the regions in which they were used. For example, the Prakrit spoken in Magad was known as Magdi. Followers of Mahavira, who were known as Jains, had to lead very simple lives, begging for food. They had to be absolutely honest and were asked not to steal. Also, they had to observe celibacy, and men had to give up everything, including their clothes. Jainism was supported mainly by traders. Farmers who had to kill insects to protect their crops found it more difficult to follow the rules. Over hundreds of years, Jainism spread to different parts of India and to Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. The teachings of Mahavira and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. They were written down in the form in which they are presently available at a place called Vallabhi in Gujarat about 1500 years ago. Now let us discuss about the Sangh. Both the Mahavir and Buddha felt that only those who left their homes could gain true knowledge. They arranged for them to stay together in the Sangh, an association of those who left their homes. The rules made for the Buddhist Sangh were written down in a book called the Vinay Pitak. Men and women who joined the Sangh led simple lives. They meditated for most of the time and went to cities and villages to beg for food during fixed hours. That is why they were known as bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. Those who joined the Sangh included Brahmins, Kshatriya, merchants, laborers, barbers, courtesans, and slaves. Many of them wrote down the teachings of the Buddha. Some of them also composed beautiful poems describing their life in the Sangh monasteries. Both Jaina and Buddhist monks went from place to place throughout the year teaching people. The only time they stayed in one place was during the rainy season when it was very difficult to travel. Then their supporters built temporary shelters for them in gardens or they lived in natural caves in hilly areas. As time went on, many supporters of the monks and nuns and they themselves felt the need for more permanent shelters, and so monasteries were built. These were known as vihars. The earliest vihars were made of wood and then of brick. Some were even of caves that were dug out in hills, especially in western India. Thank you.